Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel, and we are going to continue with the second chapter of class 9 history, and the name of the chapter was Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. And today we are going to continue with Stalinism and Collectivization, and the link of the earlier videos. This is the seventh video that we are making and the last video of this lesson, and all the other videos are already given in the link, and you can see the playlist. You can check out all the links of the other videos and you can find out what happened earlier in the chapter. So here we are reading about chapter second, and the topic today is 4.3, that is Stalinism and collectivization. So let's see, that picture that you are looking at is the picture of Stalin. So Stalin was the person who headed the party after the death of Vladimir Lenin. So we'll come to him later on. So let's see what happened. The period of the early planned economy was linked to the disasters of the collectivization of agriculture. So here what happened, when they started doing the cultivation collectively, the agriculture collectively, at that time there was disaster. Why? Because by 1927-28, the towns in Soviet Russia were facing an acute problem of the grain supply. So the grain production had become less and there was an acute problem. There was a shortage of the grain supplies. No grains were there. The government fixed the prices at which the grains must be sold in the market, but the peasants refused to sell their grains to the government buyers at these prices, as the prices were quite less. So Stalin, this is the picture you can see of Stalin, as I had told. So Stalin, who headed the party after the death of Lenin, he introduced firm and very strict emergency measures. He believed that the rich peasants and the traders in the countryside were holding the stocks or the grains in the hope of the higher prices. They are not letting them out in the market to be made to be sold in the markets for the common public. Why? Because their price would be less. So they are waiting for the higher price till the demand will increase and they will get a huge profit. This speculation had to be stopped, and this kind of assumption had to be stopped, and whatever guesses were there, like what is going to happen or not, all these things should be stopped, and the supplies of all these grains must be confiscated or must be taken under their custody. So in the year 1928, party members toured the grain producing areas, also supervising the enforced grain collection. So they said that the grain must be collected properly and they must supervise that, and raiding the kulaks. Now, who were the kulaks? The name for the well-to-do peasants. Those were rich peasants. They had huge quantity of grains with them, so they began to raid the houses or raid the farms of the kulaks. As the shortages continued throughout, the decision was taken to collectivize the farms. So one solution came up in the mind of the party members and Stalin mainly, that the decision was taken that we should make farming collectivize the farms. So it was argued that the grain shortage were partly due to the small size of the holdings of the land or the farm. So whatever farms were there in the capacity of the peasants, these were very small, and that is why the shortage of the grain happened, because the small farm cannot produce huge quantity of grain. After 1917, land had been given over to the peasants, and these small size peasants farms could not be modernized, and how much you attempt, how much you try, these farms are so small in size that the peasants farms could not be modernized, as they are very small. So what steps could be taken to develop the modern farms and run them along the different kinds of system, like the industrial lines, how the industries were developed? This was with the help of machinery. So if you want to develop the modern farms and run them along the industrial lines with the help of machinery, it was very necessary and important thing to eliminate or completely remove and sort out the kulaks from the scene, and eliminate the kulaks in the sense that you have to remove these well-to-do farmers and take away the land from the peasants and establish the state-controlled large farms. So here if you see one example, this is the land. Earlier the farmers used to do this farming in small land holdings. So the government, what they did, they took this land, this was one farmer, this is another farmer, these are all these farmers. So they had all small capacities of land. So all these state, the government took away the land from the farmers. So now the farmers don't have their land, but they gave them a large farm and they told them to do farming collectively, because the land was given by the government only, and that is why the government took away the land and gave them land, but they should do farming together, and whatever profit will come after doing collective farming together, they will share the profits later on. So what followed was Stalin's collectivization program, and this is the beginning of that such kind of state-controlled farm owned by the controlled by the government. And Stalin started the collectivization program. From 1929, the party forced all the peasants or farmers to cultivate only in the collective farms only. So the name they gave there, it is written here, kolkhoz. Kolkhoz was the name given to the collective farms in Russian language. So the bulk of the land and the implements, whatever were there, were transferred to the ownership of the collective farms only. And the peasants worked on the land, and the kolkhoz profit was shared at the end of the cultivation when the crops were completely ready. Now, this profit was shared among the farmers, those who did work in that particular field. Now, these peasants, they became enraged, they became angry, they resisted the authorities and destroyed their livestock. Now, they destroyed their animals, their livestock, their cows and their buffaloes and whatever animals they had with them for their farming. And between 19 these kulaks, they resisted the authorities and destroyed their livestock. And this between 1929 and 1931, the number of the cattle or these animals fell by 1/3. So at the time, if there were no animals, they could not do cultivation, because that time there were no tractors and all like that. So the authorities were quite shocked and the party members were quite shocked, and those who resisted this system of collectivization were severely punished. So we'll come to know what happened with them. Those who resisted or did not follow collectivization, those who did not want to do farming together with everyone, they were severely punished, and many of them were even deported. Deported here, like they were told to go away from the country forcibly. They were taken forcibly from their country and taken to somewhere else, and exiled. Exile is a kind of punishment where you are given the punishment that you cannot stay in your own country or in your own area, and you have to go away for a certain period of time, or 1 or 2 year, or maybe 10-15 years, like that. As they resisted collectivization, the peasants argued that they were not rich. They said, we are not at all rich, and we are not against socialism, and we want to support socialism, but they merely did not want to work in the collective farms for a variety of reasons. There were so many reasons why they did not want to take part or become a part of the collectivization program, because Stalin's government allowed some independent cultivation, yes, but however treated such cultivators unsympathetically. So those government people allowed, the Stalin's government allowed some of the cultivators to do independent farming, not collectively, but even though they were given permission, they were not treated very nicely. They were treated unsympathetically, in a cruel manner. In spite of collectivization, the production did not increase immediately, and there is a bad harvest in the year 1930-33 and led to one of the most devastating famines and starvation in the Soviet army, where more than 4 million people died. Almost 40 lakh people died due to this bad harvest. So one, deported meaning, and the exile meaning is also given. Forcibly removed from one's own country is the meaning of the word deported, and exile means forced to live away from one's own country for a certain period of time. Here you can see one picture, figure number 19. The peasant women were being gathered to work in the collective farms of Russia. So these two this picture shows us what happened during that time. Here is one official view of the opposition party, how they reacted to collectivization, and the government response, what happened during that time. So let us continue with the main topic. Many within the party criticized, even the people, those who belong to the Stalin's party, criticized the confusion in industrial production under the planned economy and the consequences or the result of the collectivization. So there was criticism, there was a certain kind of discussion that whether it is really okay or not, and what will be the consequences, what will be the result and the final result of this collectivization. There was a great confusion in the minds of the party members also. Stalin and his sympathizers or his supporters charged these critics, or the people those who criticized, with conspiracy against socialism. They said that you are putting question against socialism. It's a conspiracy. It is a pre-planned accusation, and accusations or different kinds of blames were made throughout the country. And by the year 1939, over 2 million, okay, 2 million 20 lakh people were in prisons or in labor camps all over Russia. Many of them were found to be innocent. Labor camps where the people were forced to do work, forced to do labor. And in north side, you can find that this kind of labor camps were set up in the north part of the country. And here we can find out that this Stalin's government was quite strict, as they put these people in prisons also. And many of them were actually innocent of their crimes they have never done. But however, no one spoke for them, no one supported these people. A large number were forced to make false confessions that yes, we did this thing under torture, and were executed at last. And they were killed, and they were given severe punishment. Several among them were talented professionals. Many of them were very talented, highly skilled professional workers. But however, they had to die, or they were executed, as they were forced to make false confession under torture by the Stalin government. Another one source you can read here, and you can read how the letter was written by a peasant who did not want to join the collective farm. You can read it by yourself for your understanding. Now let us go to the last topic, and the last topic, number 5, is the global influence of the Russian Revolution and the USSR. So here we are going to read what impact, or what kind of influence the Russian Revolution created on USSR, that is Union of Soviet Republic, Union Socialist Republic, and also the global influence, what happened in the whole world. So here, existing socialist parties in Europe did not wholly approve of the way that the Bolsheviks took power and kept it. Why? Because they were forcibly taking the power. However, the possibility of a worker state fired people's imagination across the world. However, many got the idea that even the workers also could make a government, and this was a new thing, and that is why it fired the people's imagination. It caught the fancy, it caught the attraction, or it created a kind of impact in the minds of the people. In many countries, communist parties were also formed on that particular Bolshevik pattern. Like the Communist Party of the Great Britain was formed. The Bolsheviks encouraged colonial peoples also to follow their experiment. All the people, those who were under the different colonies, they were told that you can follow this kind of party and their experiment, and the workers should be more powerful. Many non-Russians from outside USSR participated in the Conference of the Peoples of the East in the year 1920. So there was a conference of the peoples of the East, and there the Bolshevik founded Comintern. Comintern means an international union of the pro-Bolshevik socialist parties. Those who were supporters of the Bolshevik parties, they all met in 1920, and some received education in the USSR's Communist University also of the workers of the East, and they even understood or learned the ideas of socialism in the university, Communist University. And by the time of the outbreak of the Second World War, that is 1939, the USSR had given socialism a global phase. The USSR, the Russian Empire, actually the United country of Russia had given socialism a global face and the world stature. Everywhere the people came to know about the idea of socialism. Yet by 1950s, after few years, it was acknowledged within the country that the style of government in the USSR was not in keeping with the ideals of the Russian Revolution. So what ideas they started with, the Bolsheviks and the Stalin and the people, those who were following the Russian Revolution at the time, whatever ideas they had, it was not going on in the same style of government. Why? Because in the world socialist movement too, it was recognized that all was not well in the Soviet Soviet Union. In the country of Russia, everything was not okay, and a backward country had become a superpower suddenly. And one of the backward countries in the earlier century, and like just 20 years back or 15 years back, had become a great power, and its industries and agriculture had developed, and the poor also are being fed, they are getting food, but at what cost? It had denied the essential freedoms to its citizens, the basic needs, the freedom, the independence, and these all were not given to the citizens. They were like, what you can say, uh, like completely dominated by these policies of the government, and that is why they carried out its developmental projects through repressive policies. Whatever policies were carried out, these were all repressive, dominant, and they tried to control the people forcefully with their repressive policies. So this, it cannot be said to be a proper success. By the end of the 20th century, the international reputation of the USSR as a socialist country, as a country that follows socialism, had declined. People did not try to follow that and did not remember that it is a good example of a good socialism. Though it was recognized as social, these ideals still enjoyed respect among its people. However, the main idea of socialism, the ideals of socialist people, still enjoyed respect among the people. But in each country, the ideas of socialism were retaught in a variety of different ways. But don't think that everywhere the same kind of policies were followed. Every country, wherever socialism grew, they had their own way. They are rethought in a new way, in a different ways. Now next we'll read about writing about the Russian Revolution in India, what impact it happened in India also. You can read about that for your information. And one thing we can read about the Indian who arrived in Russia to learn about socialism. And Rabindranath Tagore also wrote from Russia when he went there in 1930 in Moscow, what he saw, and he says that Moscow appears much less clean than the other European capitals. So this was the end of this chapter, Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. I hope you have understood most of the topics, and we'll meet in the next lesson. Till then, thank you. Go through the playlist and try to revise the lesson once more. Bye.